like looking forward to your birthday a year out, making some plans. So let's dig into the midterm elections. They will decide the balance of power in Congress, as well as state and local races across America. We showed you that USA Today poll with President Biden's approval rating at 38% and the vice president's 28%. That same poll found nearly half of Democrats would vote their Republican candidate for Congress if the election were held today. MSNBC's Chuck Todd with this warning for Dems.
What happened to Democrats on Tuesday goes far beyond the defeat of Terry McAuliffe in Virginia or Governor Phil Murphy's narrow escape in New Jersey. If you look at it from coast to coast, it was a warning to Democrats that their congressional majorities are in grave danger.
Okay, I really want to talk directly to voters, though. Voters' voices. John L., a police officer from Connecticut and a Republican. We haven't seen each other since election night. Welcome back. Sue H., a prosecutor and former chair of the Connecticut Republican Party. Amanda A. is a minister and entrepreneur, a Democratic voter, also from election night. Great to see you. And a Democrat, Dr. Natasha D., an assistant professor of environmental medicine at the University of Louisville. Great to see everybody. Natasha, I'm going to come to you first. What is it that's missing for Democrats right now? And are the president's poll numbers so low that it's going to be almost impossible to bounce back before people make a decision coming up on who's going to run Congress?
Well, thank you, Harris. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today, first of all. But certainly there are definite concerns when it comes to the Democratic Party right now. Last week's election results, I see them a little more optimistically. They were close. But in addition to that, we have these approval ratings that are low. But I will also say that approval ratings have been low since 2017. So there are some challenges here. And then when we look ahead to midterms in the coming year, they often have a switch in terms of party. So for Democrats to be successful, we cannot continue to do the same things and expect a change, things to be different, and we need radical change. And so for me, what's most important going forward is protecting our health. Our health is our greatest asset, and what can be more important than our health? So I want to see bold, strong action to support bold and strong public health so that we can round the corner on this pandemic and our nation can be healthy and successful.
All right. I want to just hear also from the other perspective in all of this. And, you know, one of the things that people look at, John, is just how they feel in general about how the economy is going. Inflation is raging right now. What's your take?
You know, the kindest way I can put it is things right now are a bit of a disaster. You mentioned inflation, gas prices are through the roof, and these are issues that affect real people. You know, we all have to fill our cars with gas to go to work, and it costs more. And the frustrating part is that the administration doesn't seem to care. Doesn't seem to care that real Americans are hurting, and they just keep doubling down on the same talking points, not acknowledging what's going on in this country. And I think that's a big reason that you saw the turn at this last election, especially locally, with Republicans winning a lot of seats.
You know, it's interesting. You can't get away from that word empathy, John. I want to just double down real quickly with you. How much does that matter, especially when you're talking about a president who has north of 60% of people who don't approve? That's Democrats, Independents, and Republicans together in this latest USA Today poll.
You know, I'd hate to give the president any tips, but if he would just take some level of responsibility for the failures of his administration, I think that it would go a long way. We're not perfect. None of us are perfect. We all make mistakes. But just accept that you could have done better in certain areas and you're going to try to improve. That's what a leader does. And I'll tell you right now, we do not have a leader in the Oval Office.
Let's get to this. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez called out Democratic strategist James Carville for blaming the loss that they had with Democrat Terry McAuliffe in Virginia on progressives' stupid wokeness. That's what Carville said. In a series of tweets, AOC, as she calls herself, the congresswoman, woke is a term pundits are now using as a derogatory euphemism for civil rights and justice. And before people disingenuously complain woke is denigrating to older people, it's actually pundits like Carville using terms like woke to insult voters under 45. That's denigrating. Don't wonder why youth turnout falls when Dems talk about them like this. Amanda, what's your take?
I knew you were coming to me, Harris.
Well, you're
nice
a Democrat.
to see you again.
You too.
Right. My take is that we need to be able to talk about the role that racially coded attacks play in American politics. And using racially coded attacks has been an organizing tool for the GOP for decades. Whether we're talking about how Reagan used welfare queens or how the whole pro-life movement came out of the GOP's desire to keep schools racially segregated, we forget that. And now we are using racially coded attacks in the whole way we're talking about critical race theory and not wanting to talk about the real ways that racism and white supremacy and the patriarchy are very violent organizing tools in this country. So my take is that we need to have real conversations, white women specifically in the Democratic Party, about how race is at play here. We've never had a real true conversation
Amanda?
about the role race plays in this country.
And you know, I have respect for everybody. When you punt on a question that has to do with the infighting within your own family of party, I should say, not your personal family, but your political one, it does make me wonder if you understand what I'm asking. And it's less about you trying to play, take a ball or take a bat and try to hit the ball away, but more on really, do you understand what it's going to take to dig out of the hole that this Democrat president is under?
It takes the Democrats facing the race conversation head on and owning it.
But
Before
why do you
we
think
do that,
race
we can't
is such
have
a big deal
conversation
when
about
people
uniting.
tell you that it's the economy? They tell you it's inflation. Sue, I want to come to you.
Because we can't have a conversation about racial justice without talking
All right, I'm
about
gonna go to
the
Sue.
economy.
Hold on
All
one second,
of those
Amanda.
injustices are intertwined and connected.
Thank you, Sue.
Yes. Yeah. So it's so great to be here today. And, the election in Virginia really, signals how grave of a peril that the Democrats are in going into the 2022 cycle. What the voters said is that we are tired of the tax and spend policies of the Democrats, and they are ready to vote Republican in the upcoming election. AOC, President Biden, Speaker Pelosi, they've all overplayed their hand, and they're trying to tax and spend our country, and people are just tired. The voters are there's a lot of enthusiasm behind the Republican Party right now. And the other thing I want to stress is the young voters. The young voters know that when they get into their jobs eventually, that they're going to struggle. They're going to have a tough time. And the voters, time and time again, what I'm seeing in the young folks out there is they're getting behind our Republican candidates because they've seen their parents struggle, their grandparents struggle, and they know that we need to change the tide. So the rejection election of last Tuesday, that's a brilliant way to say it, is it truly was a rejection election, and going into 2022.
About what you're saying with the young people. I do. And John, I'll come to you on this because I think someone among you probably, and then you too, Natasha, needs to look at this idea of race, though, because Amanda put out rather an incendiary call for that's where white Democrats need to be focused. And as a person of color, I scratch my head a little bit on that because I'm wondering why the woke card gets played before the supply chain card, for instance. John, what are your thoughts?
I don't know, and I can't speak for Amanda and what she said, but when it comes to CRT, I ran for the Board of Ed in my jurisdiction, and I'm not opposed to looking at any curriculum. And I think people throw out that CRT and think people are going to run away and get scared and say, hey, we can't teach that. No, we have to evaluate curriculums and what our kids are being taught. And we're so politicizing kids' education right now and injecting it where it doesn't need to be injected. The focus should be on the kids, and we shouldn't be hiding our curriculums from parents as if it's some secret. Parents need to know what their kids are being taught, and parents need to have input. And I think what you saw in Virginia, and I have no idea why he would say that when McAuliffe said that parents don't need to know what their kids are being taught. I mean, to me, that just makes no sense. At a time, especially after COVID, when we asked parents to homeschool your children for nearly 18 months, and they did that, stopping their jobs, changing their lifestyles, and now all of a sudden we're saying, hey, thanks, but you can't have any input anymore. I think it's ridiculous.
So, Natasha, I want to come back to you because I really want to try to understand, because what happened in New Jersey, and it's squeaky close, and they have until tomorrow to keep counting with all the mail-ins coming in a week after the election, was very different than Virginia in some ways. So Democrats should wake up to a whole bunch of things. What should they wake up to? And is race just the only thing? Because that seems to be a reflexive nature.
This is such an important question and a very complex question. I think that what is important to me and what has to be important to us all, as I stated before, is public health. But also going even a step further than that, the air that we breathe and the water that we drink is so important to our health and sustaining life. And climate change is threatening this. But also, we have the emergency of climate change, we have the emergency of the COVID pandemic, and then we have the racial reckoning that we have been discussing as a panel. And we have to address all of these.
All right. I've got to jump in. I could go all day long. And Amanda, I'm glad that we got to spend some extra time with you, and all of you. Thank you, voters.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.